I think Walmart is probably one of the best depictions of how our society operates that you could find in the United States. You can't go through a single Walmart without noticing a large percentage of people in there are overweight or obese. Then you take a look at what's inside their carts, and it's no wonder. Everything in that cart is very heavily marketed toward that exact demographic of people to keep them buying it and to keep them unhealthy. Once you notice that, and you look up and you look around at how everything is marketed to us to make it seem like we can have whatever we want, whenever we want it, and however we want it, right at our fingertips. It is as easy as driving to your nearest location. So why am I saying this? Well, those three things point to me a bigger issue, which is that I think our society values being comfortable over anything else, over hard work, over producing, over achieving, and over excellence. And I'm not really sure at what point in time we decided those things were less valuable than just being comfortable. For the most part, people are able to just go to their office jobs, never see the sun, collect their paychecks, order whatever kind of food they want, and live and party and do whatever they want instead. Now, the issue with this is that there are a lot of vices that come with this style of life, in which choosing the more comfortable thing, choosing the food that tastes better, choosing the substances that make us feel better so that we don't have to think about other issues we have to address. The phone is the worst one of all, in my opinion, because you can hop onto any social media page, scroll endlessly for hours, achieve nothing, and get an instant rush of dopamine to your brain that tells you this thing is good and keeping me distracted. So all of these things in conjunction are part of the problem that's leading us down this path where it's not even something you think about anymore. Anytime you're faced with the option of doing something that needs to be done or choosing something that feels better, we automatically choose the thing that feels better because we've been trained to. This isn't really anything new. People have been talking about how we rely too much on comfort in our society. It's just something I think about. But what I think people don't talk enough about is how relying on comfort as a way to feel good inevitably and eventually leads to comfort making us dependent on the people that are providing the thing that makes us comfortable. Systems are literally designed so that we rely on them. Think about your food supply. A lot of people don't think about the fact that the beef they buy from the store comes from somewhere else. It's not just there at the Walmart. It has to come from a farmer that was subsidized by a larger entity to say, here's some extra money, go and raise these beefs how we want them. They raise the beefs how they want them. They end up in the store, they end up on your kitchen table. No work you did except for trading your time at your day job went into getting that beef in exchange for money from the store. Things like tech. You don't get to choose necessarily what pops up on your feed and what shows up to you as an advertisement. That's all entirely owned by the same groups of people that own the device that you bought from them in exchange for your time, and then in exchange for your money, and then in exchange for your phone. And if any of it were to collapse, should there be a conflict, a natural disaster, an economic shift, men who've relied on comfort will be left helpless. There will be nothing for them to do except for hope that something gets reinstated or that somebody stronger than them will be able to do enough to provide for more people than just themselves and their own immediate family. This is not a point for me to try and fearmonger. I'm just pointing out reality that the more we rely on the things that are placed in front of us as part of the system, the farther we come from being able to be self-sufficient should that for some reason get taken away from us. And part of that issue, the way I see it, is that not enough people are physically capable of, should these things disappear, being able to provide or protect for their families when it comes down to nobody else coming to save you. Now, with all of that said, we could spend hours going into the rabbit holes about why it might be systemically pushed to keep people in society docile, to keep people reliant on just a few core groups in our society. But I'm not interested in that. What I am interested in is this understanding that we don't have to sit around and wait for the economic shift, the disaster, some sort of conflict to occur in which we're forced to try and figure it out from that point. We can, in fact, begin training now and begin preparation, at least in the physical realm, to ensure that if we were ever to be in a situation in which men once again needed to step up as a whole, not just as an individual, and refigure out how to provide and protect for the people in our circle for the continuation of humanity, we would be able to. In my opinion, it shouldn't be negotiable for men to be physically fit. I think for your role as a man, as a father, as a husband, as whatever it is you title yourself to be, it should just be part of your daily ritual to ensure you are bettering yourself physically in every aspect you can. This is commonly accepted for any other realm of your life. Why do we teach kids from the time they're young that they should be reading all the time? Why do we push for children that go through high school to go on to college to be more educated? Everybody seems to agree on the fact that we should be working on bettering ourselves, but nobody wants to apply it to the physical side. There's multiple pillars to what makes us human. We have the spiritual aspect, we have our mental aspect, we have our social aspect, and then we have our physical aspect. And if you are letting one of those things fall, inevitably the rest of them are going to suffer. And this is exactly what I'm saying. If you aren't physically capable of taking care of the people around you, or at least being readily available in an emergency situation, let's say that conflict that we're discussing today never even comes. There are still things and reasons today that should enforce this value on you as a man, that say I should still be ready to defend should I need to pick up a person and drag them out of a situation if I needed to pick myself up out of a situation, swim across this channel, get to safety. There's a lot of ways in this world that people are suffering, and because we're blessed enough to live in this section of the world where we don't have to think about that on a daily basis, we don't have to think about the suffering, we don't think about bloodshed through war, we don't think about natural disasters very often. Maybe if you live in Florida where there's hurricanes, but that's not how the whole entire world works. That's just our sheltered perspective of how the world operates. In truth, there are a lot of perils in this world. There are a lot of people suffering. There are still slaves today being held and owned by other groups of people, just not in our side of the world. And it's honestly such a blessing to live in a place where we don't have to think about those things daily. But at the same time, it's so scary to see how little people care for being prepared to be in a situation like that should all of the things we rely on suddenly be ripped out from underneath us. I still genuinely think there are, for reasons other than just being physically capable of taking care of yourself and others, like the discipline that you'd gain from consistently making it to the gym, the self-confidence you'd gain in being able to talk to people like you are somebody instead of just always feeling like you are less than or smaller. For those reasons combined, I think that the first step to being somebody others can rely on, being somebody that adds value to the society, is keeping yourself physically fit. That's why it's been my hobby. That's why I train the way I do. And that's why I'm trying to share this message. It doesn't matter if it's through your job. If you work a blue-collar job that's extremely labor-intensive, you come home after a 12-hour shift every day, exhausted, you eat, you go to sleep, that's fine. Keep that as a way of keeping yourself fit. For the large number of men in this world that don't work a blue-collar job or something otherwise labor-intensive, you should be making it a responsibility for yourself outside of work to ensure at least a baseline level of fitness. Ensure you can have the endurance to run for a certain amount of distance without stopping. You should be able to lift something off of your chest if something were to fall, or help somebody else in need if they were to fall. And the purpose for this, once again, is not vain. It's not to say, I can do this, it's all about me, or look at these muscles. It's simply that if a man's role is to provide, protect, and be dependable by others, you should physically be able to step up to that role and step into those shoes. In the same way a lot of people place a value on having a firearm, some sort of weapon for self-defense in the home, I think a lot of men overlook the fact that their bodies should be their first line of defense. You're still worthless if you can't run wherever it is you need to be to ensure you are separating the danger from the thing you're trying to protect. No matter what weapon you have in your hands, if you can't do that in time to get there, once again, not fear-mongering. I simply want to plant it in your brain that we live in a society today that makes it easier for us to chase that feeling of being comfortable through whatever vices it is we choose. I myself am way too addicted to my phone. I sit there and I scroll, wasting hours online just to achieve nothing. All I'm trying to say is that the rest of the world does not really play by the rules that we wish it would. We wish that all things were moral, all things would act in accordance with how we want to live in our society. But that's just not the way it is, unfortunately. So what I'm saying is that when I talk about training and being physically capable, I don't just mean lifting weights, I don't just mean running to run, I don't just mean swimming to swim. What I'm talking about is being strong enough, fast enough, capable enough to handle whatever it is life throws at you. Because if you're not, and the day comes where you're needed as a means of protection, of defense for people that otherwise couldn't do it for themselves, you're gonna wish you were. And that's not a position I wish upon anybody. I'm making it my mission to share my mentality about why I think physical fitness is a survival skill more than it is just something for people to look at. Through this, I hope to get across to people that this is important. This is something that you should be thinking about and integrating in your life daily as a man in order to better our society, because as bad as we deem the world to be, there's really not a whole lot we can do unless you're somebody high in power. But the one thing you can do, and the one thing you always have control over, is how physically fit you are and how ready you are to face up to the challenges that could be posed in the future, and how prepared you are to meet those challenges. So with that, thank you for watching. If you like and you agree with what I'm saying, and you think that there's room for you to improve, just like there is for me, just like there is for most other people in our society today, like, subscribe, give me a follow on Instagram, pump_para, and let's build something together that reaches a large enough audience for this to make a difference.